Monday, July 13th, 4:09 p.m. What's up, everybody? We are back on the markets today. Some more follow-up thoughts on music copyright or just copyright in general in relation to legal implications as well as in the practice of business. A little bit on Elon Musk and Sam Altman's big homeboy interaction. Checking in on our trades, checking in on the markets. It's been, several weeks since we've made one of these updates. Haven't been trading, same kind of overall thing. Again, still don't have constitutional rights on the big scale. Again, every major felony is currently being committed against me. It's classic. But focusing besides that, the other major illegal crime that we've been documenting in this series, specifically our great colleague Andrew Ross Sorkin over at CNBC. I was issued a copyright strike through Penguin Random House Publishing. I sent them some very clean, direct legal interaction, and then they did not respond. So again, some more thoughts and follow-ups and legal documentation on that. First, we'll go through some of the trading setups and ideas, or again, just relevant to our ongoing trading log. And so I downloaded Grindr this morning, updated my profile picture, twinked out, and I shorted CF again. So I entered this position, and then obviously I'm a gay bear, and so it immediately goes against me. But I entered this trade again for the same previous, expecting less severe of a reaction to all things Iran, Trump, America interactions in the Strait of Hormuz. And so we had some further agitation. Like I said, this I entered pretty much on the morning of Thursday of last week. But point being was, if we go to our daily chart, we had some very clear sell-off. Again, previously in our log, we didn't want to hold through earnings just for unfamiliarity with the sector and with the company. But we just had further downtrend down to about 100. 100 was our price level of about, hey, all of this appreciation past 100 is almost exclusively caused by the war, without any sort of real proof or determining or, hey, this causation's for sure, but it seems to be a pretty strong correlation that generates enough conviction to take a trade. So this popped back up. This is the only thing I've traded since the last update. Everything that I have is just sitting pretty much on Treasury bonds, as well as we'll get over to the DFTX here in a second. But CF pops up. Again, I see this overall news headline from the past day or two where, again, this memorandum of understanding has expired. We have further bombings and attacks, where I see this as the most heightened tension coming out of this, hey, are we going to get a ceasefire? And then the corresponding price action not to be as strong. So like I said, twinked out, went ahead and shorted it not way too early, but it goes, we were up about $25. We had 10 shares on Thursday, wanting to trade a little bit, and then bumping up our share size to 25 shares throughout the weekend, thinking, hey, for this whipsaw, this roller coaster that is the Iran-United States diplomacy, relations, ongoing conflict, maybe we get some sort of resolution. Again, war is just so bad for everybody, regardless of what's going on in public. I'm just thinking like, hey, we should stop blowing each other up. Always seems like a pretty productive conversation. So we shorted a little more, but just a little more comfortable with the company and a little more comfortable with the sector. And still thinking that we're having some reaction to this ongoing conflict, as well as a less severe price action. From a price per share consideration, again, 115 to like 130 is kind of where we had a couple days where we went from 130 to 135, 141 or I think it was up to even like 145 pre-market. But really, again, thinking from an overall level, frankly, I was kind of hoping 115 would be. That's kind of why we entered. But we'll hold up until about 130. Again, we'll be reconsidering. Again, you want to just have enough maturity and understanding and confidence that you can react in an intuitive way to trade. I'm not going to really rehash kind of our principles we've been over, because again, I just don't think anything like sticks. You just have to be confident and understand what you're good at or what you're not good at, or again, just, trade enough to feel comfortable having conviction, and then have your share size be according to that. But popped back up today or over the weekend, pretty much opened up. Again, we closed Friday right at 117, so we were getting like 115, so we were down like $20, and then nice 144 down. But again, this is a decent conviction. I would say a 75% conviction on like 7 out of 10. No, we're not going to do a percentage. 7 out of 10 on conviction this is going to go down in the immediate short term. But we will hold this. We have an earnings report coming on August 5th after the market. And so we have a month, or again, a little 3 weeks, a little less than that. This is kind of our only trade, our only real conviction with the things that we've covered up until now. And so that is what we did. We entered there. No other really trading. Our profit and loss statement of all realized activity from our documentation is like plus $200. So we'll pretty much call it flat. But we will hold this and we'll see where this goes. So popping over to our other main focus, SanDisk, or just the memory trade and development overall. Certainly been chopping up. I think Mike Santoli just said DRAM was something off 20% off the highs in the past 3 weeks. But just looking at SanDisk, again, from our initial entry, again, we closed out at $900 a share, minus $900 dollar figure. But our price levels that we were kind of considering were like, hey, this could definitely go into the 1,200 to 1,600 level. Between 2,000 and 3,000 is kind of our upper level. And if we were going to hold the trade, we were going to try to put a short on, above anything above 1,000. The trading was strong enough through April. It was like, we're just going to close this out. Again, at no point having super high conviction, or at no point, again, really being in a mindset to even trade, just with my overall life situation. So we didn't go long here. Obviously, that would have been advantageous. But we've documented, again, you can look at a chart like this and say, buy low, sell high. Simple as that. Sell high, buy low. Awesome. But just really kind of emphasizing the points when it does make, or you would have conviction. And then if you just look at an overall day-to-day chart like this, you really don't have conviction, and you don't get the sentiment progression just by looking at a chart in any way, shape, or form. So overall for SanDisk, again, each 1,000 level layer, if I was actively trading, would be another like tester. It would still be, again, to the short, this overall, when does this momentum progression stop? Nothing has changed in our thesis there. Again, just whenever this demand cycle kind of breaks, whenever memory competition kind of catches up. Again, there's been some conversation, China's going to do this, China's going to replace this, but we would still just be trying to catch one of these short. We'll try to catch a fade on SanDisk, but again, not really in a place where I'm trying to take trades. And so this is at a level right now where, again, if I had to trade SanDisk right now, Brad, I would go long. Like, I would take this long. I don't think this is certainly not a big retracement. This, to me, just looks like another healthy channeling, and I think the demand structure and news cycling will be strong, but no real conviction over here in the memory cycle. Just documenting this because, again, this was kind of our main focus. Hey, what is our most predictable trades in the market? Fading momentum. And again, what's momentum right now? Again, these big kind of multi-year trends in technology, in AI, specifically our agentic super cycle. And so if I had to trade it, I would be long. Not much conviction at current times. The overall market, again, we have had our wash. We had some minutes update, cut, raise, hold. Seems like we've been holding. The conversation seems to be not super strong into maybe a raise, but that doesn't seem super strong. But then definitely not kind of a cut. This kind of seems to be the sentiment, and I haven't really been following super close. Again, I don't think the rates, again, we've gone through that so much, I have no real opinion. Well, my opinion is I think it's too much focus or too much discussion in terms of like operative economic events to make a trade or to position a portfolio. It's a consideration, but I just don't see it as a huge one. The biggest one being just how much fixed income can you have with a sizable amount of principal. And so the overall market's, again, kind of upper end of a channel. Again, immediate stimulus that I think will cause us to go up, again, would be another attempt at a resolution. And so when we have this choppiness with the geopolitical environment of Trump and Iran specifically, and we still channel, it's still holding up. It's not like the negative news doesn't really seem to bring it down, and then we kind of inch back up. To me, this seems, again, still pretty what you want to call the stock market versus the economy. The stock market still seems pretty strong. I don't know if that's the economy strong, because again, we're now in mid-July after April. There's no way inflation doesn't have a serious impact by the end of the year. Right now, like there's just no way. And so I'm not thinking the economy is going to be very strong here in a couple months or right now. And again, we're still at this now. We're going on 4 years again into gains, where I'm still not a real hard conviction on 3 years it has to retrace, 5 years it has to retrace, 15 years it has to retrace. The economy, the overall global economy development is pretty novel. So again, no real conviction. Population goes up, tends to go up in the long run. Is this an agentic super cycle? I doubt it. Are people going to continually overshoot to the upside? I'm almost certain of it. But anything past 3 years to me is just nonsense forecasting. But we seem to be curling up. We're a little strong again for the overall tech-specific kind of, or at least the S&P, and then probably the NASDAQ and the QQQ. Again, we've been following this a couple times, again, bouncing around. Want to take a position here, but unless we get another big retracement, probably just sit on the sidelines. Again, you can't really position a portfolio when you don't have constitutional rights and you've been seeking asylum and it's just all of your property's destroyed and nobody cares and all the newscasters have been talking about your property for years, and then it's just like you can't even email me back. But obviously, again, Brad's not allowed to exist in society. And so that's our thoughts on CF. That's our thoughts on memory. Getting over to DFTX. So I had some leftover just like general scientific biological considerations and discussions. I think that's going to be long enough for a whole nother episode. So for trading, maybe we'll touch on some biological concepts here in a second, maybe not. Overall for trading, this has been holding up, again, above 40. I'm pretty much just going to hold, again, certainly several thousands of dollars of appreciation, wanting to preserve as much as possible. But it still just doesn't, my lifestyle cannot change when I don't have constitutional rights, specifically meaning I have to sit here and wait till I try to get extorted by the IRS or not get extorted. I can't, my most direct stimulus of quality of life being zero is, again, not having constitutional rights, not having access to court, and then still sitting here and saying, okay, I have a house transaction, I have a Bitcoin transaction, and then I just get extorted by an automated letter. And then I can't go camping. Like, I can't leave this address because if I get a letter for you need to respond in 30 days, or you just get filed into court, decision without judgment, and then they just garnish you. They literally just steal your bank account. And so, again, I can't emphasize enough how severe the crimes are and how direct the quality of life is zero because of ongoing extortion, racketeering, conspiracy, fraud, all of the above, done by the government, done in a blatant, egregious fashion. But over here for DFTX, where it's, again, like I would want to preserve, again, any amount of dollars, but you have to try to trade with a reasonable wiggle room of normal price action, which is substantially volatile. But the overall dollar figures has a 0% chance of changing my quality of life, and there's not like an immediate piece of equipment that I want to buy. Like, my phone's getting there where I could replace that, maybe get a camera, but like $2,000-$3,000 is not going to do anything. I want to trade. I want to hold the position more than I want to secure some sort of couple $1,000s of profits. I don't want any depreciation, and so if I think the trade breaks down, I would have no problem closing it. But again, trying not to cut our winners too short, right? None of these cliches, or all of these cliches in trading, are pretty much true, and it's just trying to actually execute what the insight they hold. Buy low, sell high, let your runners go, don't catch a falling knife. We try to do that because you have to try to time the market, or else how else do you enter and exit a position? We've said that a bunch. But regardless, DFTX has been holding up. Any breakdown below 40, if the chart starts looking sloppy, I'll probably get out. But gonna hold for now for sure. So again, we last checked in, it had just popped up past the 35, so we've seen decent appreciation. And so the science on this is, at least the part that I wanted to point out was, so they get this initial effectiveness response from, again, I don't know, so I haven't looked if they have, well, I don't want to pull this up right now, but if they have, again, just the reporting. So this is another point of just reporting on science, the pharmaceuticals, where it's like, again, you'll have a CBD study, and then it won't actually be CBD. It will be the chemical analog or some sort of, again, synthetic molecule that's supposed to mimic the CBD, and then the reporters will call it CBD. Huge problem. Don't do that. Fraudulent, prosecutable fraud, prioritized fraud for prosecution. Again, be consistent with the diction you use to describe things. And then science and overall, if you don't have consensus, right, if you can't say the same thing, if you're not all saying the same thing, if you're inconsistent, you cannot be right. Meaning, if you have, again, one study, so like I was looking into like green tea versus like coffee, just whatever, again, hey, black coffee seems to have some sort of beneficial effect for liver stiffness, so it's like, hey, let's try this out over tea. But then you can directly look at studies where it's like green tea extract versus green tea versus coffee, and they say there's some benefit or some clear benefit to coffee, minute. Again, overall, biology is very neutral. Again, most things you do are biologically neutral. If you're drinking too much beer, the biggest thing to do is just remove the beer. But again, I can't emphasize enough historically, that is because of my learning capacity and the need to consume calories. And so again, my estate will be as stringent as possible historically, scientifically, but then you get these things for, again, both tea, coffee, specifically, again, green tea extract. They'll say, well, it's caused some sort of deaths, or again, some sort of adverse metabolic response. And so what I wanted, might as well just do the biological topics now. But so what I wanted to touch on specifically, like when you're researching tea versus coffee, or green tea extract versus brewed tea, you'll see a couple case studies. One, a 60-year-old woman, and she consumes detox tea by this popular yogi brand 3 times a day for a couple weeks, and then has acute liver failure, and it's fatal. And so when I see something like that, and then you can go immediately see the next study of green tea extract where people take 99.9% green tea extract, and it's extremely well tolerated. So our general principle is we have something that's extremely well tolerated, and then a very clear case of like, hey, did this cause a death, where it's like somebody has a stable lifestyle, and then they introduce something directly new, and it causes some sort of adverse effect where you have a strong cause and effect. You have a strong causation relationship established. And that's, or a seeming one. And so that's where I was going, is just, right, health. Again, this is going to get bigger than I want it to be in this little economics thing, but right, you have this overall health state, right? If you're eating well, sleeping well, if you're in a good, healthy, moderate, right? In moderation is the associated linguistics. Do anything in moderation. Exercise good. Too much exercise, you risk, mechanical, blunt force trauma, or again, like breaking bones, tearing ligaments, injury. Right, that's where injury is appropriate, where something like, again, alcoholic hepatitis would not be, to me, again, anytime labeled liver injury. But point being is you have some molecule that seems to be extremely well tolerated. Again, tea or coffee being in the most consumed substance over history, or again, one of them, but certainly, again, profound human consumption. And so what do you make of this case of green tea extract, where it's, a concentrated form versus a brewed form? But to me, what I wanted to get to was toxicity. To me, a case like that is not toxicity. And that would be labeled, because again, we have this LD50, which is kind of an interesting metric, right? Lethal dose at 50. If 100 people get X amount of dose and 50 die, that is what an LD50 is. So you have mystery substance X, and 100 people get 100 milligrams and 50 of them die. 100 milligrams, associated or proportional to a body weight is the lethal dose. And then obviously that's not super rigorous. Again, biological science is not exact. But you're certainly in this environment where all acute injury, you're limited by death. Any acute dysfunction to any severe level, you die. Any acute stimulus that is damaging, that gets normalized or gets stabilized, even if it's causing pathology, the body seems to be extremely resilient. And so the removal of that stimulus seems to, again, to be the most beneficial. Drinking beer, stop drinking beer. Smoking cigarettes, stop smoking cigarettes. And then you immediately get the facts like, if you stop smoking cigarettes, your chance of survival increases like 30% immediately. And so, to me, that's a statement of, again, the body if it stabilizes any sort of acute dysfunction, it can stabilize chronic dysfunction. Obviously, you don't want to do damage to your body, but it seems pretty substantially resilient, where again, you have to be way outside of what would be considered moderation. But it's specifically, again, to this green tea extract case, where it's the cause and effect seems pretty solid, right? And then it's just, but this green tea extract, where it's just like, even the concentrated one, where we've touched on, if you take, in biology, right, we'll just use, again, mushrooms, right? Like not the psychedelic ones, but just, or again, maybe that's not a great example, but, well, yeah, mushrooms, just, again, not psychedelic ones, but just ones that are edible and ones that are poisonous. You have very clear a phylum, a class, a taxonomical or taxological grouping, a mushroom, right? And then some mushrooms are poisonous. You pick them up, you eat them, you die immediately. Some mushrooms, you pick them up, you might vomit, you might have some toxicity. And then some mushrooms, again, portobello's, white baby mushrooms, you put them on your pizza every single day. And so you have this one thing, right? A mushroom, a well-defined thing. And then some are poisonous, some are not, some are in between. And so point being is it is what it is in biological science to me is, again, we have this ecosystem, plants and environment we've evolved and co-evolved around. And so the starting place is you just have toxicity. There are some things that proliferate that aid in metabolism. There are some things that aid, which to me is like the overall aiding and function of health, preserving health, removing disease or limiting disease. And so, to me, any sort of chronic pathology is always damage to your DNA structure in which the damage is getting replicated, right? Is anything reversible? No, absolutely not. Biologically, what people are asking is, when your cells regenerate, when it goes through mitosis, is that damage that is current in the present cell there going to get transferred to the next cell that it differentiates into or separates into? Separation is probably a better word than differentiation for biology. But point being is, that's to me, again, the 7th year cycling of, again, you see these gradations of, again, hepatitis, but again, just any organ dysfunction of some sort of stabilization and normalization of damage, whether that's caused by just dietary, being too fat, drinking too much alcohol, just whatever the substance or whatever the stimulus, whatever is causing the inflammation, whatever is causing the oxidation, whatever the stressor is. But point being is, what I was getting to, because again, these biology topics are really, biology to me, like I said, is pretty much completely solved. Most things are biologically neutral, but into this 60-year-old woman's case, where this green tea extract, where it's, well, again, still to the mushrooms, as the example of, you just have clearly things that have co-evolved with us. You just have poisonous and not poisonous. And then amongst those things that are not poisonous, the natural proliferations of the proportions seem to be the most beneficial. In cannabis discussion, you'll see the entourage effect, but it's the same thing as it's like, it's CBD even specifically, you get a better overall biological response from CBD whole plant distillate, where you're extracting the resin glands, but you're not concentrating or making the potency, so to speak, more dense, right? You're not distilling. Well, anytime, whether it's alcohol, whether it's, again, fractional distillation, if you've ever been to a chemistry class, anytime you introduce distillation, you are, again, getting outside of natural proportions, when, again, it's not natural or organic, it's just there are certain parts of nature that are not poisonous, right? Because you can easily have mushrooms that are poisonous, but of the things that are not poisonous, the natural proportions seem to be the most beneficial. In the same way, you're not going to eat a cheeseburger or a piece of chicken with no seasoning on it, right? Not a great analogy, but kind of the same thing. But just, if you take a substance and its naturally proliferated proportions, it's beneficial, like it's a living thing, right? And so that's kind of, even the things that are poisonous to us, it's still the most natural proportions to the plant or the animal that it's a defense mechanism for, or whatever. But point being is, there's things that are clearly biologically safe. There are clearly things that in medicine, or just adding something to your body, like, right, then we have exogenous or exogenous or androgenous materials, but just like food, right? Getting into, again, I did not want to do it, might as well. So, like, why do you eat food, right? You have your cells, you need to replace your nutrients. Again, 50% fat, 25% protein, 25% carbohydrate is effectively your cell structure. So you need to replace that and as efficiently as possible. So limit oxidation, limit inflammation. And so the point being is you have to put things into your body, again, food, or calories, I guess, in the most general. And then clearly and evidently, you can add things that are not quote-unquote natural to your body that aid in metabolism. And that's the whole process of medicine, right? That's the whole thing. You can consume branched-chain amino acids, and they're not naturally produced by the body, but they're 100% necessitated for, again, muscular generation, right? And that's why, again, of the supplements that I think are beneficial, or at least that I've used, not a complete classification, whey protein, just for calories and protein, creatine, and branched chain amino acids. Said it a bunch, and then pretty much anything else is just never made sense to me. But point being is when you eat food, you clearly need to replace your nutrients, but overall the overall dominating behavioral pattern for human beings is psychology, right? People want to feel satiated, they want to feel full. And so we see this big proliferation of GLP-1s, right? These overall things where it's like, hey, they make you feel full, you can eat less, but a lot of people that take them already have horrendous diets. And so, frankly, to me, I haven't really looked into GLP-1s. I don't think I'm going to make this video that much about them, but I'm just going to pass on. I haven't looked into them that much. But point being is, it's like, to me, on a personal level, scientific understanding, it's just like, it's not hard to lose weight. Like, it is 0% hard to lose weight. You don't consume more calories than you burn. It's just that simple. But from the psychological aspect, most people eat to feel full. And a lot of people eat under anxiety, and a lot of people eat here and here. And there's a well-defined pattern for food consumption. And so if you don't have this psychological insulation where you're like, your insecurity is manifesting in some way through eating, it's like I don't have a tendency to snack. Again, I live at my parents' house. My mom has little like sugary things around. They eat ice cream quite a bit, which I'll happily eat. But like when I'm by myself, it's just like two meals, one solid breakfast. And I do like black coffee. I do like tea, but there is a clear association to some benefit of antioxidant. And then for coffee versus tea, right? You buy coffee, it's just 100% Arabic coffee. So that's what I'm saying is, again, the biological scientific fact is organic or natural doesn't really matter. Toxic or non-toxic does. And so clearly, again, profound human consumption, decent, strong correlation of, again, some reduction. Again, I'm not over here, again, there's no magic to anything in biological science. We just saw that Brian Johnson guy. Again, another case I kind of wanted to talk about. Haven't looked into his stuff enough to comment on if it's just like a predisposed condition. But again, like maxing out biology is basically just not messing up your DNA. It's by doing less, right? You just want to have whole food, right? You want to have water. You want to not drink too much. If you're in this process of moderation, your body's overall resilient. If you don't have a genetic condition or damage already, just don't overdo anything and you're pretty much good. I mean, it's like, again, there's a long history of human beings existing before the FDA and any sort of regulation, and it's encapsulated scientifically as in moderation. Should you have 5 glasses of water or 6 glasses of water? If you're properly hydrated, it doesn't really matter. And that's pretty profound. And there's some evidence to me salt is pretty well tolerated, sugar is pretty caustic, but still, again, within the patterns that people eat, unless you have some sort of psychological clear overweight, or again, you can't control your behavior, anything in moderation seems to be tolerated pretty fine. But then we get to this more general concept of, again, right, you have to put something into your body. Well, should you put anything into your body past, again, food? And then it's just clear, again, still with this toxic, non-toxic, you can put things in that limit oxidation, limit inflammation, and anything that aids in metabolism that is non-toxic is a benefit. And so that was just to, again, the distillation, and that seems to be present in any sort of, to me, that's the biggest scientific when you see the pharmaceutical industry, and it's just like because all of these molecules are modified to be patentable. And so, but then you have the clear example of LSD not being toxic. And so not toxicity seems to be pretty well established and moderated in the proctoring of medicine, like prescribing things. But then the overall benefit of this helps anxiety or this helps depression, it's just like no. And then the clear association of acetaminophen, Tylenol, and liver stress is very well established. And so we have then immediately again we get into the fraud level of academia, where again they're directly lying about fundamental science, and then they are making policy with things that are clearly proven wrong. And in this career chasing, I'm the medical doctor, I'm the head surgeon, and it's just like egos have well surpassed common sense and well surpassed, again, things that I would challenge, again, a head surgeon, be like, dude, let's me versus you science level, and again, you will be incompetent in 2 seconds. It doesn't matter. I'm not asking me to conduct a surgery, but your overall demonstration and understanding of science is just, again, we need to isolate and make our own molecules and then patent them. And then we have these it's just like every pharmaceutical is like, well, if you have a liver response, if you have this, some people have, again, the side effects being so pronounced. And then we just had this big celebration of this oncology drug, extending people's lives for like 6 months or 18 months or something even less than that. But then they can get on the news and say it doubled the expectancy. And the previous expectancy was like 3 months. So we go from 3 months to 6 months of life expectancy. And is that a meaningful resolution or stabilization of bodily dysfunction to say, hey, this is substantially different than even 3 months to 6 months? Is that really something to be celebrated? Frankly, I don't think so. I mean, it's not a meaningful step in science. And so there was a lot of biological topics I want to get to, trying to stay with a couple of them. But so then getting back to what is toxicity. And so when we have this woman who's 60 years old, where it seems to be a pretty strong causation, she took this yogi tea, it was labeled detox. And then again, it's just, again, tea versus coffee. There's a lot of different leaves and barks that go into teas and these blends. And it's just like on a personal level where it's just like, hey, again, I take about 25 milligrams of CBD, and that's down from the 300 since my last blood work, just trying to limit the overall of what I'm exposing my body to. Again, my blood work was effectively normal last time, again, just on a personal documentation level. But what I'm looking for is, again, just no furthering of the firming of the liver, which there shouldn't be. I mean, I've limited the stimulus profoundly, but again, completely from the alcohol, but just, again, your body's always processing things. And so then you get to this question of organ sensitivity, right? If I have a KPA of 8.5, and then again, the normal range was 2 to 7, again, getting away from me even to the more general, what do we make of this normal range of, again, your cells don't reverse anything, they just regenerate, and how much integrity, cellular integrity or functionality integrity do they preserve as they regenerate? That's what people really call reversibility. Because after, again, you're cycling completely about 7 years, but you see substantial progress. Again, just immediately once you remove any sort of stimulus, again, in my case, remove alcohol, I'd imagine any sort of like short-term inflammation would go away in about a month or two. And then, we have these scans 6 months later, which seems good, where it's like, hey, you removed the short-term stimulus, and now you can do the scans for the organs to see actual damage, structure, firmingness. And so it just meaning, again, I don't think there's any magic sauce to any sort of, when you have a clear inflammation, clear causative agent to some sort of dysfunction, your body's still, again, overall pretty resilient the whole time. It's all overall in this environment of most things are biologically neutral most of the time, and so there's just nothing to do, right? You just don't keep causing this ongoing stimulus. To the Brian Johnson case, where it's just like blood transfusion and just like doing all of these extreme things just seem like intuitively, common sense wise, to me, it just seems like that would be a big no-no. But I just don't know the case well enough where it's like, if he had a pre-existing condition and that's why he's so adamant about these different health things. Because again, we could still just be completely in this realm of biologically neutral, where you do a bunch of blood transfusions and crazy looking things, and you're still just not really doing anything. And so again, just your DNA is your DNA, and preserving that integrity throughout your life is really what presents biological longevity, what presents quality of life. And so then to the T case, again, getting back to, again, what is toxicity? When you have something that's clearly well tolerated, again, we have this difference between extracted, again, if you know the processing of producing cannabis oil or any extracted oil, any seed oil, olive oil, palm oil, whatever. There's a couple of different ways to extract it, but point being is you're not concentrating, you're not distilling anything. You're still preserving the natural properties, and then there seems to be this distillation effect. If you take any molecule, again, cannabis, any pharmaceutical, anything, and you just isolate it through distillation, it seems to be removing these natural proportions that, if you're in this environment of not toxic, seems to be the optimal. And so that seems to be present in all things pharmacy, all things medicine, all things biological proliferation, dietary considerations, and exogenous materials, just anything you would put into your body. And then, so again, to the T case, when she again, seems to be a strong causation or strong correlation to causation, but that's not toxicity to me, right? So a couple things with sensitivity of just like, third time's a charm, first impressions matter, right? How many people, if they were I don't know the practice of medicine that immediately, right? If someone gets prescribed a new medicine today, like they go into their doctor 6 months later and they have blood work. How many of those people have an initial metabolic response to any new substance? Just any substance at all. Something that'd be well tolerated, but just again, right? You eat something, you can go in and get a blood work, and you can have not even like off days, but just high levels of given markers or given blood antigens. And that's why, again, with pathology, like for my case, where it's like where you have clear imaging of stiffening of the liver, like that these levels have been elevated in a detrimental way for a long time. But how many people have, again, if you eat, right, you go get blood work, you're supposed to fast for this amount of time, not too long for this amount of time. It's like in the natural progression of your biological cycling, how many people, again, take an initial substance the first time, again, just dietary, just eat something new, or again, a benign-ish medicine, and it just causes some metabolic response that never gets documented. And so in clear ongoing raised levels that causes pathology is documented. But my expectation, again, to this T case specifically, what I kind of think happens is people I'm conjecturing, have responses all of the time. They normalize those responses. You don't see them until they go into the doctor again, or if you have blood work every 6 months. I would imagine, again, that type of response would normalize within the first couple weeks. And so just something that I think is out there. But that's what I'm saying, and I've said it previously in these videos, where it's like I don't see one blood reading as like a big thing. But it's like you should track it and follow up and try to figure out why, obviously, and that is the practice. But again, I just don't see the science articulated anywhere of it's just like, hey, you're putting something new into your body, and it's just, again, you're going to have some sort of reaction. And again, how much of that happens right now and it's not documented at all, I would conjecture a substantial amount. But point being is then you have some sort of metabolic response, it normalizes, you never see it, and it doesn't cause damage, and that's still well within this not toxic realm of substances, dietary, whatever you label anything. I'm literally talking like food, supplements, drugs, anything that you put into your body. But, and again, that's just so present in any medicine you take, where it's like take a small dose and then kind of work up to a working dose, and then you have a clear window of, effective dose, but too high is toxic. And so the LD50, again, is good enough. Again, it's kind of an interesting metric, but in this T case, again, getting back to it, is not toxicity to me. It's you have a clear metabolic response. Again, acute liver failure is acute liver failure. But again, it's specifically into nutrition, where it's like diet. Again, it's like I've been a person that went to the gym substantially. I've been around gym culture. That is like the least healthy, supposed to be healthy environment kind of like ever. And like I said, I was always natural. I did order pro hormones one time, never took them. And it was just like, once you have to consider like your vital organs, it was just like, nah, I'll bench as much as I can, but I don't really care. Certainly don't care that much. And so point being is the overall gym culture, where this chick, she was on a detox or a diet. And it's like, has this person been running around her whole life trying to be super thin? Which is, again, what is a healthy metabolism? Is good quality food in, not too much, but a good cycling, right? Good food in, good bowel movements, but not just, starving yourself or being nutrient deficient a lot of the time. Again, That to me, that's overwhelmingly apparent and scientifically solid. And so to me, again, in this diet environment where everyone's trying to be thin and look sexy and it doesn't look sexy, and then you go turn on Clockwork Orange, or there's a movie where the mom wants to be on this game show, and it's like, I want to win. It's like, I want to be thin, I want to be sexy, and it's just like, good food in, good bowel movements, good cycling to me is a healthy, strong metabolism. And again, in an environment where your overall routine is pretty well established. And so this case to me of this tea is we have some sort of, again, certainly a metabolic response. I would conjecture a life environment of overall not healthy, just in general. Overall, all things considered, where again, it's if you have 10 vital things you do throughout your day, eating, sleeping, exercise, not getting too much sun, something to those effects, right? If you do 9 out of 10 and they're all healthy, your body's going to have a better response, getting accustomed to or not having a substantial damage to the one thing that's not perfect or whatever. Meaning overall health is going to dominate if you have a little bit of dysfunction, right? If you're overall healthy and you go out and have 2 beers, you're definitely it's not a health consideration at all. But if you have this lifetime of extended nutrient depletion, and again, it's extremely easy to not be nutrient deficient on a modern, quote-unquote, Western diet. You need your overall healthy fats, protein, carbohydrates, micronutrients. Again, if you've eaten a vegetable in the last 7 years, you're doing pretty good. But some sort of poultry, fish, some sort of fish noodles, because I even see things like white rice and noodles, and it's just like, then we get to more, it's just like people are looking, again, biologically neutral, the overall diet's well established. But this tea case, you get some sort of metabolic response that causes catastrophic result, acute liver failure, to death. And I just see it as, again, it's like the straw that broke the camel's back. An overall metabolic environment that's stressed, again, specifically to trying to be healthy, super quote-unquote healthy, but trying to be thin. That would be my guess. But it's certainly not toxicity, again, specifically to science and to ontology. Again, if it's well tolerated amongst most of the species. And then, again, because CBD, there was this one study where if people have taken the epilepsy dose of 350 milligrams at a body weight of 158 pounds, 5% have had elevated liver enzymes. And it's that's not a toxicity response. That's some sort of metabolic response, clearly, but toxicity is toxicity. LD50 is LD50. Again, it might not be exact, but it's close enough, right? And then if you have 95% of zero response, 5% of small response to the CBD study, but really just in general, right? If 100 people take cyanide at 2 times the LD50, 100 people are going to die. And so that's toxicity. If 100 people take this mushroom that's toxic out in the woods, or 100 people who get stung by this jellyfish and that substance, right? The toxicity is well established. It's not this off 5% or this, again, in some environment of overall fragility to the host, to the person, and then some sort of, again, certainly a metabolic response that's caused by a stimulus, but it's not scientific toxicity. That's not consistent to toxicity. That's kind of just a science point that I wanted to make, that is true. I think I covered most of the biology things that I was wanting to. I don't know. That's what I got covered, but trying to keep it economic. But okay, moving on. So because, again, now we're on this DFTX, and they have this study that's come out, and they've shown efficacy for 100 milligrams. Again, that's where we went on this, not tangent, but this aside of drug analogs. And so now they're having this other follow-up, or again, this is a comment on the FDA process. And so they had 100 milligrams, an effective dose that showed, again, clear reduction of quote-unquote depression. The depression is not the real thing. The scientific response, the experiential response to the drug is certainly a real thing and positive and good. And then they're having this, what they call a second arm or a second leg, second leg of this study. And so we have this efficacious response at 100 milligrams or maybe even micrograms, but now we're going to do a 50 micrograms, or again, half the dose, which just was kind of I saw this on a stock board, but just, again, it was effective against, when tried double-blind against a placebo, but now they're going to try 100 micrograms or 100 milligrams against 50 milligrams or 50 micrograms. And so some people were on there saying stuff, again, for the stock price, which, again, I'm just holding, this is more biology now. But they're saying, hey, if the 100 milligrams shows a strong response against the placebo, no milligrams, but not as a strong a response against the 50 milligrams, that would be like bad for the stock price, which that made me kind of scratch my head. But scientifically, it's like, I don't get what this second arm or second, are they trying to find the optimal dose? Because again, it's one of these things where it's like, you can put a bunch of words in a bunch of studies, and this stuff is already proven effective. It's already proven efficacious. Because again, the quote-unquote science is all of the denial that has been codified and institutionalized through projection. All of these people saying, and reefer madness was in the 60s or in the 20s, and then it's just this, nobody corrects the behavior, and then it's just this stigma just gets passed along. And you're still seeing states come out, and like Massachusetts wanted to repeal cannabis, and it's just, again, you have watching people transmit insecurity with direct biological detriment immediately. It's fraudulent, it's racketeering, it's conspiracy. It's as direct public safety detriment as that could exist. So again, to my estate, sue all of them, literally everybody. But to the overall FDA progression of, again, not something I've looked into super. I'm not sure if the chat board seemed to summarize again what's going on pretty good. And so, but just this. If this 50 microgram comes out, to me, the only thing that this could be doing scientifically is trying to establish the most effective dose. But again, if you've ever taken LSD or mushrooms and it's just like at a high dose and they're like, is this a placebo? You're like, what world do you guys live in? But the overall thing was just, it's like 100 micrograms or milligrams versus 50 micro or milligrams. It's like, I'm not really sure what that establishes scientifically. But again, the overall practice of medicine is in violation of the law so profoundly enough just to say the whole edifice is completely fraudulent. And certainly the relationship between academia, the pharmaceutical industry, and then the doctor's office, this prestige career, I want to be a doctor bullshit. It's just like, again, how many of you doctors went into school and learned anything about rhythm? And then you have a circadian rhythm. So what medicine did you learn? You just learned what Billy was talking about. And then we're back to the frontal lobotomy and not analogy. Where it's like, just because you got a piece of paper, if all of your friends ran off a cliff, would you jump off a cliff too? If all of your friends went to school, like lying, cheating, and stealing about everything, is your medical degree really worth anything? The point being is that's what's specifically going on DFTX, and overall for an FDA process, I'm not sure what that establishes. Because then you have like breakthrough designations, which is, again, this stuff is already proven. And then we're just right back to the Constitution. You guys are violating that. You guys don't know what proof is, and it's been proven. And then you guys just blurt out no. And that's just true. But that's what we had for biology in specific to our trading. Again, below 40, I'll be wavery, but still not a big enough position to really care. And it's definitely not going to change any quality of life when, again, I don't have any and I don't have constitutional rights. But to the Sam Altman and Elon Musk homeboy comment, again, both of their companies are mined every progress of their actual business progression along with every bit of talent, quote unquote, they hire with any of these fraudulent degrees. Your legal liability literally so profoundly outweighs any value you could develop. These are my companies. These are violations of the law. Sam Altman and Elon Musk lawsuit doesn't matter. You guys just keep lying, cheating, and stealing, and you guys just don't think there's going to be consequences for your actions. There is a lien on the entire academic structure and all global industry. You can't not be stealing from me. And the dissemination of the physical form of logic is inevitable, and it's already been happening for 10 years. But Elon Musk, I didn't really follow that case. We commented on it briefly before, but I said I didn't really follow the case, so I don't know anything to comment on the legals. But just watching Sam Altman say homeboy to Elon Musk, who again, he's got the telomere extenders, he's got the chromosome extension pack. But Elon Musk says in relation to Mackenzie Scott that giving away money is very hard to do. And I just fundamentally disagree. Again, in the same way you don't have to have a mega business. If you start a business, you can just have a mom and pop shop that supports your family, gives you good working hours, gives you a good income, and it's self-sufficient. So that is what your goal is for any sort of giving, to have self-sufficient entities, whether you give like literally one individual person like $10 million. Because Elon Musk says it's very hard to give away money like in a positive way, meaning you give it to some organization, it gets distributed amongst a bunch of administrators and projects that don't accomplish anything. But nope, you could very literally take $10 million, like put some behind a trust or some sort of legal structure where it just gives a family direct income, and it would absolutely be a net positive directly. So what you'd be looking for any sort of positive giving, again, Elon Musk is just hypocrisy after hypocrisy. Dude has no idea what he's talking about, and everybody else is just like, oh, he's the richest dude in the world. He's got the most money. It's like, one, he doesn't, and two, he's an idiot. But giving away money is not hard to do. You just need to have self-sufficiency of whatever you give away. In the same way you want a business to be self-sufficient, you want a legal entity to be self-sufficient. It just needs to be, again, self-sufficient. The money needs to be invested away, not given away. And so we had, again, Sarah Eisen. Again, anytime I criticize somebody, would I? Yeah, I would pipe. But she said just her overall, just again, reaction to, again, just Republican talking points. Once again, you can hear the dog in the background. I cannot work. I do not have an office. I do not have constitutional rights. It destroys every property I attempt to produce. But we see a privileged Sarah Eisen, again, up there. She had this reaction against some quotes from today. She said, in kind of reaction, you would trust AI over your financial advisor? Again, we're going to get to this world of informed consumers, educated consumers, where we go into the doctor's office, I get my blood report, I get my scans, and then my quote-unquote practitioner has taken one blood pressure reading, which I have tracked tremendously. It is normal, and she wants to give me another pill, and I'm like, holy shit, I cannot take care of my own health, which, again, I cannot emphasize how profound me not being able to take care of my own health, going into an office and seeing someone immediately do all of the unscientific bullshit that I could ever articulated. I just want them all in jail immediately. But again, this educated consumer, where again Sarah Eisen says you would trust AI over your financial advisor. There's not some sort of secret logic. There's not some sort of secret deductive process. And all of this stuff is standardized in a way where there are right answers, and it's just like this overall behavior of not knowing how to behave at all. And so, yeah, you would trust your AI over your financial advisor. This whole process of, again, not having consensus, not having consistent sentience. You can go into your financial advisor and you have to shop around because they're saying different things. There's a correct way to manage money. You go into different doctors and you get different opinions, right? That's a problem. That's not consensus. That is a huge problem. But we're going to have this thing where we're already getting to extreme standardization, where it's just there's a right way, there's a right methodology, there's not much to do. There is some customization, there is some genetic difference, but not much. Specifically to healthcare, specific to finance, there was nothing that novel. Well, there's more in finance where, again, you can have trades or stuff. Gussie, come on, buddy. Come up here. Gussie, up here. So we're gonna try to keep going. I don't know. Dog's barking quite a bit. But just emphasizing again, Sarah Eisen doesn't know what she's talking about. Gus, come on, buddy, up here. Gussie, come up here, please. There he comes. There's big guy. There we go. Not like anyone watches my shit anyway. But I was just this morning, again, the neighbors cutting the grass at 6:45. You cannot work in this country. Like, for all of the hardworking Americans I've ever heard about, all anybody does is just play games. Regardless, we're getting through our stuff. We're almost done anyway. Gus has calmed down. We go. Okay. So, again, just this extreme standardization where it's not like you go into the doctor and you're some special person. You go into the finance office and there's some secret financial thing. Right, there's not some secret cheat code. You can't have different trades which would pan out, and like that would be a reason to have different I'm a different financial advisor. Nobody should have to have a different doctor. The procedures of medicine should be well established and standardized, and to a large extent they are. It's just the relationship of pharmacy to medical practitioners to academic validation is fraudulent, profoundly. And so there is, again, that the medicine system is tremendously terrible. Again, on my own personal level, where it's, again, going into doctors' offices, and it's just like they immediately start doing things that are not scientific, that in any meritocracy, you would immediately lose your licensure, you would immediately lose your credentials, and it's just people on an individual basis, like, trying to preserve their careers in the context of medicine is as disgusting as it gets. But again, that's the trust. You would trust AI over your financial advisor. It's just like, she just demonstrates, again, I don't know how people watch Sarah Eisen, and I do not know how people watch Joe Kernan and be like, yep, this represents financial literacy well. Again, Andrew Ross Sorkin's still up there just committing crimes. So that was a couple things I wanted to say on that side. This is going to be long. Oh, well. But again, so I emailed Penguin Random House. I'm just like, hey, you guys, again, we covered that. We issued these citation or these copyright strikes. Do you agree with them, and who issued them, just so I have this information? And then they just don't even respond. And so there seems to be this, I've had this happen a couple other times where, again, nobody's responded to me. Everyone in my life is destroyed. Brad Boas is not allowed to be a person ever. But it's like, if you say, just in general, if you say to a party, right, that you're going to sue them or you're going to take legal action, people seem to like shell up like a little turtle, where it's like you have an obligation to try to settle things outside of court. And you're just like, and this is what lawyers do every day, isn't it? Again, like, what world is this? Where it's like, hey, this is what your client did. Here is what we're going to present to court. Do you want to do anything about this? Is, again, the interaction I'm trying to have with Penguin House. Because, again, I am just throwing everyone that has published some sort of academic writing or book through Penguin House as being criminally prosecuted yet 10 years ago. And so this is another one of these private companies. I don't go out of my way to create these situations, but if it happens in this context, your company's done. And so everybody that's published a popular science book or a popular academic book through Penguin Random House, you're being named as a criminal defendant. That company's at zero. Lamar Advertising, where I put up that billboard, that company is at zero. Yesterday, criminally. And so, what was her name? There was a good Madison Forsander. That was the person that responded. But then I literally, again, just direct, hey, this is what has happened. Do you want to respond to this? But at the bare minimum, I need names to name as defendants. To which they don't even respond. And again, I just don't know. But again, I'm a scapegoat. I get blamed for things, and it's just like, you can't, I have no access to court. Again, I am buried in so much crime, it's unbelievable. I've declared asylum. But still on a direct private level, these people don't know any of that shit. They're just saying, okay, he said he's going to do something legally, let him file it in court. I can't file something without a name, or you can't file things without being able to name a defendant. And so I've had that happen a couple times where it seems like the best quote-unquote legal thing is just completely ignore the person that says, hey, I'm going to sue you. Hey, I might be pressing criminal charges. And so that's just be illegal. That's just directly illegal because you have an obligation to not tax the courts with just trivial things that you can settle. Right? Law enforcement, this overall, hey, we all live in the same world. We all need to not lie, cheat, and steal all of the time. All of the common law things, are well established. And so you should be able to resolve things outside of court. And then you try to contact people and they just do no response. And then again, I am a scapegoat. I don't have constitutional rights. I don't have access to court. And it's duress. It's an extreme exaggerating and extreme aggravating circumstance. But that's what happens. No response from Penguin Random House. Andrew Ross Sorkin still sitting up there just committing fraud. Read his whole book, sat down in an academic sense, and just destroyed, again, over 200 videos of novel analysis where my prodigious capacity is responding in real time to quote what is insecurity, but just, again, people not knowing things, and then directly solving all of the logic presented. And then just destroy Brad's life, walk over there and do nothing, and then it says there's no remedy. So emphasizing that is up there. I sent them something else like, hey, you continue to accrue criminal and civil damages, please advise. Nothing. And so, it's been criminal charges, but again, this overall process of just ignoring somebody that's saying, hey, I'm going to take legal action, when the overall society has an obligation to not bear the courts or whatever. You just can't live a life in a world where nobody plays fair or there's no laws. There are no laws in any way, shape, or form. Again, emphasizing this stuff happens outside of, again, I literally don't have laws, constitutional rights every minute of every day. And this is just genuine behavior, not just happening. Awesome stuff. And so I did have one point on music copyrights because I have a couple songs on my YouTube channel that are copyrighted. Again, if those were to get striked, which is the only thing I care about, I just want to have a publication channel out there when, again, I don't have any expectation for my life to change while I'm alive. And I'm still just working every day, just trying to preserve it in any way, shape, or form. If I had a private server to upload to, even though I know my shit is already recorded before it's even hit my computers, it's just such a weird headspace. But no one cares. No one's ever cared about me. But point being is on the music copyrights, because we've talked about that a little bit, copyrights in general, whereas if somebody owns property, I would 100% legally in an enforcement capacity side with the property owner. But like when you have these bands like the Eagles, like they'll strike you down immediately if you even like play anything about them. As a property owner, as a judge, as a law enforcement entity, it would be whatever the property owner rights owner wants. But as a person, as somebody who also owns intellectual property, it's just like, where is this? Like, what is it taking away from how is it taking away your revenue? Or if someone has a cover song, right? Specifically cover songs. If you hear a song you like and it's covered, you typically go to the original or you typically look around at different things. So for like a book versus a song, where if you're reading a book and you steal the whole thing, right, that might be a problem. Again, there's so many points. But again, not making this about me. Again, me sitting that my videos are such clear, fair use and academic analysis, it's disgusting that I had to take anything down. But point being, for music, the sound audio, like if you literally take the file somebody recorded, that's clear copyright infringement. To me, it's a pretty high level to show any sort of taking away from the original artwork or copyright infringement for anything besides the actual sound recording. Sure, you can copyright. Again, I would agree with lightly melody and lyrics. That seems okay. But still, I just don't think it takes away from the original art piece. Like revenue, exposure, anything to that effect. I just don't think there's any damages. And so, but regardless, I would side with any sort of property owner. Hey, I don't want my song played at all. Certainly not the sound recording. You would certainly be allowed to do cover songs, anything that you've played the instrument or you've sung the notes. You would be able to copyright the melody and the lyrics. Certainly the lyrics because it's writing. The melody, if it's changed key enough, if it's significantly distinguished from the original, which is already kind of the verbiage, but how transformative does something have to be fair use? Still discretionary. But to me, it's one of those things where it's like you can feel if this is an attempt to just steal somebody else's work versus, and this is to more, which I don't think it's a good thing, but it is what it is. It is a thing. Again, YouTube being the predominant, hey, I want to show long-form discussion, long-form education. Here are my skill sets. As like someone trying to have a resume or have a YouTube channel, I would profoundly rather have a YouTube channel where it demonstrates my skills. If I was a student, or if I was a workforce person, or if I was anything besides a scapegoat that would never have a career, again, sitting down with 200 videos, here's me talking about economics, here's me talking about geography, here's me talking about Eastern European politics, just all of the different books we reviewed. But then for anybody, right, it's just like, and then you have to worry about like copyright, where it's like, you're not even attempting, you're just like building a portfolio. You're literally just building a resume, a demonstration of your skill sets, of your educational process. There should be no consideration to copyright. But then again, it's just like, I don't see how anybody, I don't know what kids are doing where they have to upload like a school project. If anyone does anything, and it's like, how do you share that? How is that not just a YouTube link? And it should be, because again, if you go up to like an employer and they have 100 applications sitting on their desk and they're looking for a candidate to hire, and 99 of them have pieces of paper and they all have, again, these bullshit resumes with, you managed a lemonade stand for 5 minutes and you're like, accounting and, business operations and tear down and construction, and you just put the most flamboyant language on just doing nothing. And then everybody has resumes like that and it's just competition over nothing. And then somebody has a YouTube channel where it's just like you can just go click on a video, you can see the times when they were uploaded, you can see the different subjects they were talking about. It's like how to me that's infinitely more valuable than a resume. And so it's like, how could you have to, like, if you're trying to like demonstrate your skills, why on earth would you have to ever worry about copyright is a profound problem. But then luckily for us, we have a profoundly stupid populace where nobody's doing anything. But that was a big thing that stuck out, was just if I was a student or if I was somebody in the workforce that wasn't a scapegoat and trying to, which I have been and have tried, it's like I would want to be able to demonstrate my skills more so than here's a piece of paper with a bunch of random words where everyone's lying and I've never even gotten an interview. I'm literally the most demonstrably competent person that's ever walked on this fucking planet. So that's good. But I did want to say that for in terms of copyright, specifically to music. Again, the 3 types of differentiations. The actual sound recording, definite copyright infringement. A cover song where you're singing word for word the same lyrics, to me is not a big deal. Gus is going again. Come on, Gussie. No, don't do it. Don't bark. We're almost done. I said that like 20 minutes ago. But I might just cut it there. I think we pretty much got through the other things. But Jim Lebenthal did have one other quote. He said, "If you're in biz, you're not going to let anybody encroach." And that is correct, Jim Lebenthal. So you're going to be named as a defendant. Again, everybody on CNBC's regular contribution list and hosts are aware of my work in a way that's fraud, racketeering, and conspiracy. So correct, Jimmy. Pharma Jim, I'm not going to let anybody encroach on my property, which is the form of logic, which has been proven and iterated multiple times publicly. It is what it is. It's the form of language. It's still there. It is what it is. Always has been, pony boy. I don't think that's the quote. But that's what I have for today. Covered a lot of different topics. I feel like I had a couple more thoughts on copyright, but we had some barky interruptions. But I think that we got what we wanted to get out. And so we're going to call that today where we're at. Again, overall market kind of blah today. And we twinked out and shorted CF, and it just immediately goes up. So that is what I have for right now. Thank you for watching. See you on the next one.